Alrighty, let's talk about using attention-grabbing techniques in the interview. In the world of video interviews, it's become more difficult than ever to present yourself as the best possible talent for a job. You're competing with people who aren't even in your geography because we've now opened up work to being remote. One of the biggest pet peeves that I see as a recruiter and a hiring manager is when someone joins a Zoom platform or any other online platform and they blur out their background. Number one, I'm wondering immediately how messy the background is of the room that you are sitting in. And you don't want the interviewer to be thinking about that. You want them to be focused entirely on you, not on the curiosity of what's in your room. Number two, I can still see parts of your background. Every single time you move, I get a glimpse of something that's in the background and it's distracting. I don't care if you're standing in front of a brick wall, at some point, just have a background behind you. Invest in putting a picture up on a wall, or invest in a clean background where you don't have to blur it, a white wall, anything. And under no circumstances whatsoever should you be taking this on your cell phone, in your car, while you're walking around. If you want this job, you need to invest in being in an area that is quiet and that you know has good Wi-Fi or good cell phone reception. You only get one chance at doing this. A few things to remember in the interview. It's okay to bring a notepad with you for questions. Don't feel as though you can't have anything that's in front of you. That is an old way of doing interviews. You can have something in front of you. Also, remember, answer the question the person is asking you. A lot of times people will hear the question and then they're going to trail off into sharing some sort of a story instead of answering the question. Make sure you answer the question first and then you can share a story. I know it sounds cliche, but your body language, your eye contact, your facial gestures, whether you're smiling or not, the fact that you are sitting confidently in a chair in front of a screen or in front of the other person, all of these things are attention-grabbing techniques. They matter. If they ask you if you would like a drink, take a drink, whether it's coffee, whether it's water. This is hospitality if you're sitting in front of them. So if they say to you, hey, would you like a drink? Say yes. Also remember at the end of your interview, whether you have a bottle of water in front of you or whether you have an empty cup in front of you, ask them where you should put that. Don't just leave it there and get up and walk out. I once knew a hiring manager who used that as his decision-making process for whether or not he would hire you. Because if you are just going to leave your dirty dish or your dirty cup or your empty bottle on the table without any regard for who was going to pick up after you, to him, that was an indication that you weren't considering others in the interview process and that you wouldn't work as a collaborative team member. Bring references with you if you have them. And know that if you have those references, it's great if you don't mind that someone is going to call them out of the blue. Also, if you have a mutual connection and you know that that mutual connection will speak highly of you, then feel free to drop this person's name. Say, hey, I noticed online that we're both connected to Jordana. Do you know Jordana? Yeah, I know Jordana. How do you know Jordana? Well, I know Jordana through, and then proceed to say how you know that person if you feel confidently they will speak highly of you. If you don't, obviously, do not do this. Another attention-grabbing technique is when you go off script in the interview. I remember when I was interviewing an entry-level salesperson, and it was at Cintas, and halfway through the interview, this candidate told me that one of his hobbies was playing football. It made sense, but this was an excellent example. Telling me that he was playing sports put in my mindset that he was someone who was resilient, that he had a process, that he cared about his health, that he was a team player. It was an excellent example. So be very aware of your surroundings and when you may be able to drop something in that could be relevant. Here's another excellent example. Someone who had told me in an interview after I had asked them about who is a hero of theirs or who was a mentor of theirs, they decided to tell me a story about their father. And they told me a story about how they grew up poor and how their father was an immigrant and how they struggled and how they had to overcome adversity to be able to even go to post-secondary. This was also an excellent story because it showed that this person was able to overcome obstacles. Another excellent example. Someone had communicated to me that they had been in a disastrous car accident and they had to fight back after losing jobs, after losing money, after losing family members who couldn't watch them any longer and help them. They told me about how they had to get back on their feet. All of these are great stories if you can weave them into an interview, because they give the interviewer an impression and a respect of you that wouldn't come up in a normal question. Especially in sales, a resilient story can give the illusion that you're someone who can bounce back. And I don't just mean give the illusion if you actually are that person. So remember, drop a name if you know a mutual connection and have permission. Bring your references. Bring visual aids or portfolios. If you have a case study, bring a case study. We're going to share one in the content portion of this as well. Think of a purposeful story that you can share and a timely story. Something that is going to display your grit, your athleticism, your resilience. Don't bring a gift, and do not start with a joke. Also, if you move on to the second interview, maybe do a recap of the first interview. If you made it to the second, then you start by explaining what you learned in the first. That's one technique that will really impress the next person that you're meeting with. It shows how engaged you are in that interview, but it also displays your listening skills, your knowledge of the company and the role, and how it's going to give you an opportunity to start the interview by taking control and asking questions to the interviewer. Let me explain how this works. Let's say that I go into a second interview with an HR manager after my first interview with the direct hiring manager. And I say, "Hey Amanda, great to sit down with you. I had a wonderful conversation with Scott. Mind if I tell you a little bit about how I think the interview went?" And of course they're going to say, "Yes, please." And you proceed to explain what you thought of Scott, his mission, the company, the amazing initiatives that are happening right now with the company. You take control of that interview, and then you start building rapport with that interviewer. It's a wonderful technique. Keep in mind, the interviewer could be meeting with dozens of candidates. You want to do things that are going to stand out and position you as the most suitable candidate. That's all for this one. I'll see you in the next one.